Good morning, everyone. I would like to call this meeting to order and acknowledge that we are in Treaty 1 territory, the home and traditional lands of the Anishinaabe, Innu, and Dakota peoples, and in the national homeland of the Red River Métis. Our drinking water comes from Shoal Lake 40 First Nation in Treaty 3 territory. My name is Carrie Linklater. I am your chairperson this morning. I am joined via Zoom by Mr. Robert Belenke and Mr. Brent McIntyre as panel members. Our city secretary this morning is Mr. Jason Robertson, and our assessor is Clayton Diachin. We will be hearing applications for revision of the assessment roll in accordance with the Municipal Assessment Act. The matters for which revision is requested have been described in each application, and we will limit discussion to those matters. The statements that are made at this hearing are sworn testimony, and anyone speaking to the matters must be sworn in. Be advised that comparisons of assessments of properties are not considered evidence of market value by the board. The Board of Revision is appointed annually by City Council and is independent of it and the City Administration. It makes its decisions on the basis of the evidence provided at this hearing and issues a written order that will be mailed to all parties as soon as possible. Please note that the board's decisions with respect to an application may be appealed to the Manitoba Municipal Board if the matter pertains to assessed value or classification, or to the Court of King's Bench if the matter pertains to the application of exemptions from taxation. Should you wish to appeal, information on how to do so will be included with the board's order. With respect to the hearing process, I will confirm the points of appeal with your property to be addressed with each applicant following the swearing in. We will then have the assessor's testimony followed by questions that the applicant may have, and then the applicant's testimony followed by questions. Each side will have an opportunity to summarize if they wish. Once all of the evidence about an application has been brought forward, the applicant may leave. The process will repeat for each item on the docket today. The session will close after all the applications have been heard, and the board will deliberate in private and make its decisions. You will receive the board's decision by registered mail as soon as possible. And as information, all public hearings are live streamed, recorded, and will be part of the public record. This morning, we will be hearing items 1 through 10 on our docket. And Mr. Robertson, would you please affirm the assessor and the applicant?
Mr. Assessor, please state your full name.
Clayton Diachin.
Do you affirm that the evidence you are about to give at this hearing is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. Madam Applicant, please state your full name.
Sarah Cates.
Do you affirm that the evidence you are about to give at this hearing is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. You may be seated.
Thank you.
And good morning, Ms. Cates and Mr. Diachin.
Morning.
First item on our docket is 110 Victoria Avenue West. And Mr. Diachin, whenever you would like to proceed.
Okay. It's file number 222628, roll number 090004012000. The address is 110 Victoria Avenue West. Roll year 2023, assessed value is at $4,207,000. It is a 40S property. It is one building, 6 stories high, built in 1994 with 39 suites and 13 outdoor parking stalls. On page 3 is the income value summary, shows 19 bachelor suites, 10 one-bedrooms, and 10 two-bedrooms for 39 suites at an average monthly rent of $865.63. Our gross effective income is $397,013. Expenses at $201,365 brings the NOI to $195,648 at a cap rate of 4.65%. Brings the value to $4,207,000. Page 4 shows the rent comparables for the property. So I tried to find some in the area with similar suite mixes built around the same time. As you can see, some are a bit older because it was difficult to find that. But you can see it falls near the lower end of the range of average monthly rent per unit. Page 5 is the CMHC rent calculations that I did. You can see that it's about 3% lower than the CMHC rents. Page 6 is just the CMHC table showing the different rents. Page 7 is the cap rate evidence. The following is a sample of actual sales that took place during the reference period. The purpose for showing these individual cap rates is to illustrate the accuracy of the model and substantiate the model-derived cap rates. And then you can see it ranges from about 3.6% to 5.74%. Page 8 is the cap rate table for our model cap rates, the 20th percentile to the 80th percentile. Page 9 is the Municipal Assessment Act. Page 10 is just a couple pictures, unfortunately no interior pictures. Going back to the cap rate evidence, I guess the most comparable property would be 1745 Henderson at 4.28%, and we're at 4.65, so I think we are good on that, and that is my evidence.
All right, are you finished, Mr. Diachin?
Yep, that is all.
Thank you. Questions, Ms. Gibbs?
Yes, thank you. So if we turn to your cap rate table on page 8, in the range you have, can you provide any information on the sales that are being included to achieve that range, such as how many sales, in what areas, etc.?
No, I do not have that information.
Okay, and the broker cap rates that you have listed here, they're used as further support for the assessment department cap rates. Is that correct?
I believe so. I'm not too sure what we use those for, to be honest.
Okay. So then when we look at your income value summary on page 3 and see the assigned cap rate of 4.65%, that's below the indicated broker ranges shown here on your cap rate table. Is that correct?
It's below but it's within the range of our cap rate evidence.
But it would also be below the city's 20th percentile. Is that correct?
Yeah, there's some below that range. It's not always falling in the range of that.
Okay. So then looking at this property specifically, would you agree that properties built for seniors housing tend to have certain deficiencies built in, such as small suites and poor parking count, for example?
It's potential, but I don't think this one has small suites.
Okay. And would you agree that these type of properties tend to be built to a more utility grade or basic standard than a market apartment would?
What do you mean by that?
Like just more basic in terms of the finishes, like not really luxurious.
I mean, potentially. Again, I'm not too sure. I don't have the interior pictures. Without doing inspection, I can't say.
Okay. And then looking at your cap rate evidence on page 7, so your sales are here. Have you also provided the workups as part of your direct evidence?
No, it's in rebuttal.
Okay. And then in terms of the new sale you have at 1745 Henderson, Find It in Sabre, are you aware if it was a share sale and if any non-realty items may have been included?
I don't believe it was, but I'm not 100% sure.
And are you aware if it may have been purchased with the intent to renovate?
Not that I'm aware of either.
And are you aware if this property was part of a multi-parcel sale?
I don't believe it was either.
Okay. That would conclude my questions for this property. Thank you.
Mr. Valenki, did you have any questions?
I have no questions, thank you.
And Mr. McIntyre?
I have no questions, thank you.
I just have a couple. Your brief is all model driven?
Correct.
Along with your cap rate?
Correct.
And I believe you stated you didn't inspect the property?
I did not know.
You know when it was last inspected?
From what I remember looking at, there wasn't any inspection in the last long time. I just wrote no inspection on there, on my notes.
But so you didn't inspect the property, but yet you're sort of speculating that the suites are not small?
Well, we could see that the gross floor area per unit is 914. So
And
I was
you,
just going by that.
okay, and you don't consider that small, on the smaller side?
No.
All right. And your cap rates on page 7, your evidence, why are you picking 1745 Henderson as your best comparable?
Just because it's a high-rise one, as the subject property is a high-rise as well.
All right. Is it a senior's residence?
I don't believe it is.
All right. I thank you. That's all my questions. Ms. Cates, if you'd like to proceed.
Okay, thank you. So if you turn to page 2 of the brief, we have our requested assessment of $3,210,000, as well as an exterior photo of the property. Our property description is on page 4. So the subject property is located on Victoria Avenue West, near its intersection with Day Street in the Victoria West area of Winnipeg. The property is a 6-story apartment built in 1994, and the site size is approximately 19,000 square feet. The property has 39 units, which is skewed toward smaller units being bachelors and 1-bedrooms, and there are 23 outdoor parking stalls noted. So you'll see we have an aerial photograph below that and a Google Map view on the next page. So if you turn to page 9, we have an overview of our cap rate. So the main contention for this property would be the cap rate. We are disputing the assessor's cap rate of 4.65%, and we are using a cap rate of 5.75% based on our cap rate study, which I'll briefly go through in a bit. But just as an overview of our cap rate, the first table shows our base cap rates that is stratified by effective year built. And these are assuming good quality properties in good locations. And our second table is all of the factors that we consider for a potential site-specific adjustment. So in this case, our base cap rate based on the age and the style of the property is a 5.25. And we've made 2 adjustments here. The first being for seniors housing. Not all seniors housing properties, but when looking at certain ones, such as this one, has some deficiencies or hard to cure issues that are built in. These include being skewed towards small suites of bachelor and 1-bedroom, as well having poor parking count, 0.6 stalls per unit approximately. And in terms of the suite size, I wasn't able to get a definitive number on that. But in terms of just dividing the overall gross floor area by the units, we don't put much stock on that for the seniors housing properties because they tend to have more common area than standard market apartments would. So that tends to inflate the size of the actual units. And then the second adjustment we consider is for social housing. Our social housing adjustment comes from the presence of 4 potential factors. They're not all present at all properties, but in terms of this property specifically, it would be low income tenancy. With low income tenancy, it creates higher operating expense ratios, and social housing properties tend to then have more deferred maintenance and such issues from that. So we've made 2 adjustments there for a total 0.5% adjustment. So if you turn to page 11, we have our income and expense breakdown for the property. So in terms of this property, we have accepted the effective gross income that the assessor has used of $397,013. The reason being that social housing properties aren't going to have market level rents or market level vacancies just due to the type of property it is. So in terms of our analysis today, we're looking at it from that market perspective. We have used that at EGI. In terms of the expenses, we do look to the actual expenses. So where available, we stabilize based on 3 years of expenses. And in the remarks column toward the right-hand side of the sheet, we have a comment if something is an average or a percentage. If there's no comment, it could be assumed that we're stabilizing based on the most recent year. So for instance, things like insurance and utilities, they tend to just increase. So we would use the most recent year, whereas things like waste and snow or wages, in this case, we use an average if it's going to vary. So just going through this, in terms of our repair and maintenance, we've stabilized at $1,080 per suite. We do have a more detailed breakdown in our brief as well on page 29. And as well, we have reserve expenditures. We've taken an average. Where possible, we'll also break out the reserve expenditures in a table, but in this case, we don't have them broken out, so we're just showing that we've taken an average here. Now, in terms of the expense, which is not the actuals, that would be the taxes. So for our valuations, it's common practice for 40S properties to use the class code 20 taxes, because when we're looking at this from a market perspective, it can't reasonably be assumed that the specialized tax treatment would continue over the long term of the property, should it just operate as a market apartment. So that is the logic there for calculating the class code 20 taxes. So this gives us total expenses of $212,459 for an expense ratio of approximately 54%. We have an NOI of $184,554. And with our 5.75% cap rate, we get an indicated value of $3,210,000. So at this point, I would like to just briefly present our cap rate study, which is a separate document. So if everyone has that, then I will proceed on the cap rate presentation.
Should be listed as item 00, Altus apartment cap rate study.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Panel, do you have it? Mr. McIntyre and Mr. Belenke, do you have the study?
Oh, yeah, sorry.
Yes, I have it, yes.
So if you turn to page 2, we start by looking at the city's cap rates and the ranges they indicate. So we see a range from 3.85 to 7.4%, with most falling between the 4.9 to kind of mid-5 range. And I would suggest that for a lot of the properties we're dealing with today, being social housing, some being in challenging locations, that we should be stretching toward the higher end of that cap rate. We should be beyond the investment grade property cap rate range, and the city's own model suggests going potentially as high as 7.4. So if we're going to be looking toward that range for any properties, I think the ones we're hearing today is appropriate. So next we look to the market reports and what the brokers indicate for cap rates. So the important takeaways here is that for low-rise properties, they're suggesting 5% is an absolute low, and they're also suggesting little to no compression from last cycle. Where we are seeing compression, it's generally for the best of the best stock. So toward the bottom of page 2, we have some discussion on interest rates. So the main idea here is that interest rates are just one component of the cap rate, and that the cap rates don't necessarily move one-to-one with the treasury yields. So we also have some graphs included. These are national graphs, so they're not used to derive our cap rates, but just to show the relationship between interest rates and cap rates. Now on page 4, we get into discussion of all of the factors that we may consider an adjustment for, but that we look at for the properties. And not all factors will be relevant to all properties, but just to touch on a few that will be relevant to today's docket. So firstly, looking at building amenities, we're seeing that tenant preferences have changed. People are spending more time at home, which predated COVID, and therefore demand for things like in-suite laundry, balconies, gyms, etc., have been more in demand for people. Another one we're looking at today would be durability and quality of income in regard to social housing. Social housing properties tend to be built to more basic finishes, basic standard just being for standards of meeting shelter requirements. And so they tend to have more risk as well. We do see that they tend to have deferred maintenance elements, increasing the risk. And the adjustment that we consider for social housing is based on presence of 4 potential factors, which I'll discuss as they come up in the docket. And then in terms of the other factors that we would consider for adjustment in regards, we do have quite a few seniors housing properties today. So in terms of things that we look at for seniors housing, they tend to have low parking ratios. they tend to have an inferior suite mix, being skewed toward bachelors and 1 bedrooms rather than 2 and 3 bedrooms, which we're seeing more demand for. And additionally, the suite sizes tend to be on the smaller end. It's not uncommon to see for seniors housing to see bachelors in the 300 to 400 square foot range and to see 1 bedrooms at around 500 square feet. And then if you go to page 6, we have our cap rate sales. So the first 3 would be the most pertinent to this cycle. And then we've also included some older relevant sales just to show how our position on cap rates has evolved, as well to further bolster some of our age categories. And then on page 7, we have a chart showing sale price per suite, stratified by effective year built, just shown as another metric to reference. And then toward the middle to bottom of page 7 is just the 2 charts that show up in our briefs. So that would conclude the report section of the cap rate. And then the rest is the appendices, which I know everyone's heard. So I'll just wrap up the presentation and just go back to my main brief on page 11. So following from that is how we get our adjustment for the cap rate and our indicated value, which works out to a value of approximately $82,000 per suite. And then the appendix for the brief starts on page 13. And what we have included is just the city valuation, the financial statements we've looked at. As well, we have our repair and maintenance on page 29. We don't have an itemized breakdown for this property, just the totals, but if you wanted to see how we got the 1080 a suite. And that would conclude my presentation on this property. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Jackson, questions?
Yeah. Just looking at your page 11, wouldn't you consider it pretty abnormal that the utilities jumped 20 grand from 2019 to 2020?
Not necessarily. It would depend on the actual occupancy. So sometimes with these type of social housing properties, we do see jumps in utilities just based on different reasons with the tenancy. So it's not necessarily unusual.
Okay. No further questions.
Thank you. Mr. Belenky, questions?
I have no questions. Thank you.
And Mr. McIntyre?
I have no questions, thank you.
I also have no questions. Thank you. Does either party have a wish for a summation?
Thanks. No, thank you.
I'm good also, thank you.
All right. We will move on to 275 Midwinter Avenue.
Or can I do my rebuttal now, or?
Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Yes, of course.
Okay. I got 2 documents.
Which document are you speaking to first?
I'll speak to the rebuttal to the 2023 Altus cap rate study.
Okay. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'll just go through it quick because we've all heard it before. I think the main issue is on 2390 McPhillips. They used market rents, whereas we use the actual rents for this property, and you can see all the different notes on the side on how we stabilized it, and we came to a cap rate of 4.79%. And that is all for that document. Should I go into that?
Is that
sorry. Yeah, that's all for that document. Yeah, sorry.
all right? Thank you.
Yeah.
And then your next document is?
It's the, what's it called? Your rebuttal to Altus cap rate properties.
you'd like to proceed.
Okay, so it's just 2 pages. The first page is showing the cap rates or the properties that are used for the cap rates in Altus's briefs. Negative factors such as wood frame construction, high bachelor suites, small units, poor parking, suite count ratio, having basement units, and poor location are already included the cap rates in the Altus cap rate study properties as highlighted in the chart above. You can see the different ones in orange that I've highlighted, some smaller units with wood construction, parking ratios under 50%. Increasing the Altus cap rates further for these negative factors would be double counting the negative factors. And then on page 2, I'm not sure, it doesn't really pertain to this property, but I guess I'll just speak to it real quick. Altus has indicated that $1,300 a unit R&M is low and that $2,000 a unit can be normal. This is not consistent with the average R&M used in the Altus cap rate study shown above at $749 a unit. And that is my evidence for that.
I thank you. Ms. Case, did you have questions?
I do, thank you. So I'll start my questions with the rebuttal to 2023 Altus cap rate study document. Okay, so regarding the cap rates from this cycle, would you agree we're fairly close on 555 Corden and 677 Maryland?
Yep, that's why I didn't even bother going over those.
Okay, and then in terms of McPhillips, would you agree it would be an unusual situation to have a new build where there's still room to increase the rents?
I'm not too sure.
Okay. And then I'll just now go to your rebuttal Altus cap rate properties. So in terms of the negative factors you've highlighted and suggesting it's double counting, are you aware that we don't necessarily make adjustments for each of these features?
Yeah,
Like, for example, are you aware we wouldn't make an adjustment just being wood frame construction? It would be.
But I've heard you guys talk about that before because it's wood frame construction. You've added a premium before, so.
Okay. And then in terms of what you're suggesting with location, let me see here. See, Maryland and Langside, would you agree that there are, let's say, more challenging locations than this and that sometimes an adjustment would be warranted?
Potentially some of those areas are not very good at all. I don't know. It's hard to quantify that, I guess.
Okay. And would you agree to that the sales that we look at are a sampling to support our cap rates, not necessarily where we're deriving all of our cap rate knowledge from?
Sorry, say that again.
That the sales that we use, similar to the city, it is supporting our ranges that we use. We're not just using the sales as direct comparisons.
Yeah, but I mean, you're using them as support and they have those negative factors. So I mean, it's got to be relevant.
And then looking at the R&M claims, would you agree that a few of these properties that you're showing are fairly new properties and that new properties tend to have lower R&M?
A few of them are new. I mean, a lot more are older, I would say.
And would you agree that just a sampling of these doesn't show what's normal across a range of R&M, as this is just 10 properties out of a whole city of apartments?
I think it's a decent sample size.
And would you agree that generally when looking at averages, there are going to be high ends of the average and low ends of the average based on different owners' preferences as to how much they want to invest?
Yeah, we could see the high end is 1,400.
Okay, thank you. That would conclude my questions on this document.
Thank you. Mr. Belenky, questions?
No questions, thank you.
Mr. McIntyre?
I have no questions, thank you.
I also have no questions. We will now proceed to 275 Midwinter Avenue.
Okay.
Whenever you're ready, Mr. Dychen.
Oh, sorry. Also, the stuff that I spoke about in the rebuttal, can I carry forward to the other properties as well?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, thank you. File number 22998. Roll number is 14091587000. The address is 275 Midwinter Avenue. Roll year 2023. Assessed value is at $1,289,000. It is one building, 2 stories high, built in 1969, with 12 suites and 12 outdoor parking stalls. On page 3, it shows that there's 12 one-bedrooms at an average monthly rent of $898.21. Continue on to the gross effective income. It's $125,203, and the expenses are $61,375, giving us an NOI of $63,828 at a cap rate of 4.95%. Brings the value to $1,289,000. Again, page 4 is the cap rate or rent comparables. Tried to find similar suite mixes in the area, built around the same time. And again, it falls at the bottom of the average monthly rent per unit. Page 5 is the cap rate evidence supporting our model cap rates. Page 6 is the cap rate table for our model. Page 8 is the income and expense mailers. You could see that it notes $64,000 NOI, and we're at $63,800, so it looks like we're good in that regard. Page 10 is just a little description of the property. Bright, spacious, and outfitted with hardwood flooring and modern appliances. The dog run for residents with dogs. And there's a few pictures of the exterior, and page 11 and on show some interior pictures of the property. And that is my evidence.
Thank you.
I have no questions. Thank you. Would you like me to
Yes.
proceed? So at this time, we're just going to be requesting a 54-1 confirmation of the assessment after our review of all of the evidence. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Belenky, did you have any questions?
No questions.
And Mr. McIntyre?
I have no questions, thank you.
I also have no questions. We will then proceed to 100 Robinson Street. Mr. Dychen, whenever you would like to proceed.
Just give me 1 second here. Okay. It is file number 223246, roll number 14001474000. Address is 100 Robinson Street. Roll year 2023. Assessed value is at $3,058,000. It is a 40S property. It is 2 buildings, 1 to 3 stories high. Actual year built is 1992 to 2010, with effective years built of 2000 to 2010. There are 30 suites and 20 outdoor parking stalls. On Page 3, it shows 24 bachelors, 35 one-bedrooms for 59 total units at an average monthly rent of $571.85. The gross effective income is $391,914, and the expenses are $208,420, bringing the NOI to $183,494 at a cap rate of 6%, brings the value to $3,058,000. Again, page 4 is the rent comparables. Similar suite mixes in the area. You can see it falls way below the range of average monthly rent per unit at $571. Page 6 is the CMHC market rent calculations, and you can see it's about 20% lower than the market rents. Page 6 is just the CMHC table of the rents. Page 7 is the cap rate evidence supporting our model cap rates. Page 8 is the cap rate table. Page 11 and 12 are just a couple pictures of the property with some information about the property. And that is my evidence.
Thank you. Okay, it's questions.
Just a couple, thank you. So looking at this property, would you agree it's in a challenging location?
Challenging location. What do you mean by that?
Like a lower socioeconomic location?
Yeah, probably.
And would you agree there's not a lot of private investment within this location?
I'm not too sure about that information.
Okay, thank you. That would conclude my new questions.
Thank you. Mr. Belenky, did you have questions?
I do not have any questions, thank you.
And Mr. McIntyre?
I have no questions, thank you.
Mr. Dychin, I'm assuming this is all model driven.
Correct.
I'm assuming there is no inspection.
No inspection.
Well, just so I don't keep asking, all your briefs this morning are model driven and there's been no inspection of any properties.
That is correct.
Thank you. That is all my questions. Ms. Cates, if you would like to proceed.
Thank you. So if you turn to page 2, you'll see our requested assessment of $2,412,000, as well as some exterior photographs of the buildings. So if you turn to page 5, we have our property description. So the subject property is located on Robinson Street, near its intersection with Dufferin Avenue in the Lord Selkirk Park area of Winnipeg. So the property consists of a 1-story and a 3-story apartment. They were built in 1992 and 2010 with an effective age of 2000 assigned to the property. So the property contains a mix of assisted living and independent living suites, and the site size is approximately 2.6 acres. The property has 59 suites, which are again skewed towards smaller suites, and there are 20 outdoor parking stalls noted. So you'll see an aerial photograph of the property as well as a Google Map view on the next page. So if you turn to page 9, we have an overview of our income approach. So as mentioned with the prior property, social housing won't have market rents and market vacancy. So we have accepted those parameters as applied by the city. And in terms of the expenses, we have looked to the actual expenses, but given that they are on the higher end and that these are newer properties, we have capped the expenses at a level of 60% to be reasonable. If you turn to page 10, we have an overview of our cap rate. So we are disputing the assessor's cap rate of 6%, and we're using a cap rate of 6.5% based on our cap rate study. Now, in terms of the adjustments that we've made to this property, again, we've made adjustments given that it's seniors housing. It does have small units, poor parking, inferior suite mix, and as well, given the factors of social housing being low cost construction, low income tenancy, and as well declining or blighted neighborhood. So with those, we've adjusted upward to 6.5, and I can break down that adjustment if anyone wishes, but just for the purpose of the presentation, that is our adjustment as it stands. So if you go to page 12, we have our income and expense breakdown. So you could see we're using the same effective gross income of $391,914. We have looked to the actual expenses. We didn't have the 2018, so we've looked to the 2019 and 2020 with the 2017 as a reference. And as mentioned previously, just to keep the expenses in line, given the newer age of the property, we have capped them at 60%, but we are of the opinion that a higher expense ratio than what the city has applied at 53.2% is warranted for the property. So we have a net operating income of $156,766, and with a 6.5% cap rate gives us an indicated value of $2,412,000, which works out to a value of $41,000 per suite, which is on the lower end, but it does make sense considering the small suites and the size of those suites. And then our appendix would just include the financials that we've looked at in the city valuation. And on page 31, we do have a repair and maintenance breakdown. Like I said, we don't have the 2018 data, so it is a 4-year average instead of a 5-year average. And that would conclude my presentation on this property. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Dodge, any questions?
Yeah. On what basis did you use the 60% expense ratio?
So in terms of the 60%, we made a reasonable estimate based on the fact that the actual expenses are running quite a lot higher than that. So for an older property, we may cap it at something higher, like 65%. But just given that this is a newer property, we've capped the expenses at 60%, just in terms of being reasonable with our evaluation process here.
And on your page 10, so you're applying a 1.25% premium to this property, correct? For the factors listed below it.
That is correct.
Okay. And then I guess my comments will just carry forward from the rebuttal about that.
Right.
And that is all. Thank you.
Mr. Balicki?
I have no questions, thank you.
And Mr. McIntyre?
I have no questions, thank you.
Ms. Cates, I'm just wondering, you had stated that this building had assisted and independent living.
Yes.
Do you know the split?
I believe, since there's 2 buildings, I believe that the one is independent and one is assisted, but I don't have a solid answer. But when I looked on their website, it kind of gave the breakdown that there was both options. So that's my understanding, that they have 2 different civic addresses, like one is called 100 Robinson and one is called 102 Robinson. So my understanding is that one would be the assisted and one would be the independent.
Okay. That is all my questions. Thank you. Thank you.
There's nothing with preliminary issues. They're all just assessed value.
All right. Does either party have a wish for a summation?
Yeah, I guess just quickly, we're already very high on the cap rate at 6%. We're 20% lower than CMHC rents, and it's at a poor income quality, which is generating the lowest rents and highest expenses for a property like this. That's all.
I'm okay. I think I'll just do a summary at my last property, if that's okay.
That's fine. Thank you. We will move on to 300 Selkirk Avenue. And Mr. Judson, whenever you are ready.
Okay. It is file number 222001, roll number 14010167100. The address is 300 Selkirk Avenue. Roll year 2023, assessed values at $6,530,000. It is a 40S property, one building, 8 stories high, built in 1973 with 169 suites and 22 outdoor parking stalls. As you can see that there is a sale in May 2018 for $8.2 million. I'll speak about that a bit later. Income value summary shows 140 bachelors, 29 one bedrooms for 169 units at an average monthly rent of $518. The gross effective income is at $1,016,888. Expenses are at $566,305, and the cap rate's at 6.9%, bringing the value to $6,530,000. Again, page 4 is the rent comparables. Tried to find similar suite mixes in the area. You can see it falls way below the range, or at the very end of that range of average monthly rent per unit. Page 5 is the CMHC rent calculations, and you can see it's about 22% lower than the market rents. So we're way lower on the rents. Page 7 is the cap rate evidence. Page 8 is the cap rate table. And then continue on to page 10 and on is regarding the sale of the property in 2018. You can see that it sold for $8.2 million. The actual price paid was $5.5 million. There was an appraisal done, as you can see, for $8.2 million. And I know on that appraisal that the cap rate was used at 4.75%. Continuing on, there's some pictures of the property. Unfortunately, no interior pictures of the building, and then just a few or a little bit of descriptions on the property. And that is my income, or that is my evidence.
Thank you. Questions?
Yes, thank you. So going to your rent comps on page 4, you indicated that the subject is well below that. Would you agree that that's because your rent comps are all in superior locations than the subject?
Potentially.
Are you aware of the neighborhoods of your comps?
I'm relatively aware of them, yes.
So you would agree that something on Templeton would be superior to something on Selkirk?
Yeah, and that's why it's $100 more per unit.
Okay. And then going to your sales questionnaire on page 11, you would agree that the sale was subject to unusual conditions, correct?
Can you be more specific?
So in terms of under point 3 on the form, where it says subject to unusual conditions, and they did fill in the relation. So would you agree that the sale was subject to unusual conditions?
Potentially, but it still has the appraisal and still has the sale price on there.
And would you agree that appraisals come with their own set of conditions and assumptions, and they're used for a specific purpose?
Yeah, they're used to determine market value of a property.
Okay, thank you. That would wrap up my questions on this property.
Mr. Belenky, did you have any questions?
I have no questions, thank you.
And Mr. McIntyre?
I have no questions, thank you.
Mr. Diachin, can you just enlighten me a little bit on this sale? Was it arm's length?
I'm not too sure the relation between Manitoba Housing and Winnipeg Housing, to be honest. I'm not too sure, to be honest with you.
Right. Thank you. I have no further questions. Ms. Gates, if you would like to proceed with your brief.
Thank you. So if you turn to page 2, we have our requested assessment of $6,142,000, as well as a couple exterior photos of the property. On page 5, we have our property description. So the subject property is located on Selkirk Avenue, where it intersects with Robinson Street and Charles Street in the Lord Selkirk Park area of Winnipeg. So the property is an 8-story apartment built in 1973, and the site size is approximately 1.3 acres. So the property has 169 units, which includes 140 bachelors, 28 one-bedrooms, and 1 2-bedroom. And there are 22 outdoor parking stalls noted. So you'll see below that the aerial photograph, and on the next page we have a Google Map view of the surroundings. So on page 9, we have the overview of our income approach. So similar to the other properties in terms of rents and vacancy, we have applied those in our analysis, as we understand the city's rents are a factor of CMHC, and we find that to be appropriate for these social housing properties. And then in terms of the expenses, we've looked to the actuals and we've stabilized based on them, which comes to a rate of 57.7%. If you turn to page 10, we have small contention on the cap rate. The city's cap rate is on the higher end at 6.9. We've applied a 7% based on the adjustments as shown below. I did have the chance to visit the property with a colleague of mine, and not in time to submit the photos, unfortunately, but I was given some knowledge on the condition prior to that, so that's why I put a higher cap rate on this one, just due to a slight condition adjustment as well. Visiting the property, the units are in quite original condition to the 70s in terms of appliance, flooring, finishes. We got the opportunity to walk through 3 different units, so 2 were kind of staged, so they were a bachelor and a 1-bedroom. And then we also got the opportunity to see a 1-bedroom, which had just vacated. So we could see it kind of how it looked after it's vacated in comparison to the staged units. So in terms of the types of things they do to the units as they vacate is in terms of kind of patching holes, painting, kind of just basic elements of updating. So if you turn to page 12, we have our income and expense breakdown. So you'll see here the effective gross income of $1,016,888. And then in terms of the expenses, I have used more averages here than what we tend to use. And that was just due to variabilities that I saw in the numbers. So to smooth it out, I've used more averages for certain elements just to ensure we're being accurate. So our expenses include repair and maintenance at $905 per unit. And we have total expenses of $586,960. So with an NOI of $429,928 and our 7% cap rate, we have an indicated value of $6,142,000, which works out to approximately $36,000 a unit, which is on the lower end, but does make sense in the context of being mostly bachelors and smaller units. And then our appendix would then again just include financials and the city valuation that we've referenced. And our repair and maintenance can be found on page 37. And that would conclude my presentation for this property. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Diachin, questions?
No further questions.
Thank you. Mr. Belenky
No questions, thank you.
and Mr. McIntyre.
I have no questions, thank you.
I also have no questions. Ms. Cates, is this your last property?
Yeah, 865 Sinclair will be my final property.
Oh, all right then. Do either of you have a wish for a summation?
I'm okay at this
Yeah.
point.
Mr. Dye?
No, thank you.
All right. We will move on to 865 Sinclair. Diachin, whenever you would like to proceed.
It's file number 221476. Roll number is 110416171100. The address is 865 Sinclair Street. It's roll year 2023. Assessed value is at $8,219,000. It is class code 20 liability grant. It is one building 9 stories high, built in 1973. It has 131 suites and 60 outdoor parking stalls. On page 3, it shows 114 bachelors, 16 one bedrooms, and then 1 2 bedroom at 131 units for an average monthly rent of $670.51. The gross effective income is $1,009,772. Expenses at $574,156. NOI is at $435,616, and the caps at 5.3% brings the value to $8,219,000. Again, page 4 is the rent comparables. Tried to find similar suite mixes built around the same time. Again, you can see that the average monthly rent per unit is at the bottom of that range. Page 5 is the CMHC market rent calculations. You can see it's about 7.5% lower than the market rents. Page 7 is the cap rate evidence supporting our model cap rates. Page 8 is the cap rate tables. Page 10 and on are some pictures of the property. See some exterior photos, some interior photos. And that is my evidence.
All right, thank you. Ms. Cates, questions?
I have no new questions. Thank you.
Mr. Malinky
I have no questions, thank you.
and Mr. McIntyre?
I have no questions, thank you.
I just have one question. I'm just curious, Mr. Deitchen, as to your cap rate of 5.3. I understand that's model driven, but looking at your previous property, same age, almost the same number of suites, close to the large amount of bachelors, etc. I'm just why, and they're both Manitoba and Winnipeg housing properties. So I'm just wondering why the discrepancy in the cap rate.
I couldn't tell you for certain without comparing them and analyzing them side by side, but they're slightly different areas of the city. Yeah, I'm not too sure without comparing them side by side.
All right. Kate, if you'd like to proceed.
Thank you. So if you turn to page 2, we have our requested assessment of $7,260,000, as well as an exterior photo. On page 4, we have our property description. So the subject property is located on Sinclair Street, near its intersection with Jefferson Avenue in the Garden City area of Winnipeg. So the property is a 9-story apartment built in 1973. And the land size is approximately 41,000 square feet. There are 131 units, which includes 116 bachelors, 14 one-bedrooms, and 1 2-bedroom. And I estimated there are approximately 20 to 30 outdoor parking stalls just from looking at the parcel, but that would just be an approximation. So you'll see an aerial photograph of the parcel. And on the next page, we have a Google Map view of the neighborhood. So on page 9, the discussion is on the cap rate. So that is our only contention here. We are disputing the assessor's cap rate of 5.3%. We're using a cap rate of 6% based on our cap rate study. Similar to prior properties, there is a base cap rate of 5.5 based on the age, and we have made a 0.5 adjustment to account for the hard to cure issues that have come with the seniors housing, being parking, suite mix, and suite size. As well, we make an adjustment for social housing, given that there is low income tenancy, which is one of the factors that we look at. So on page 11, you could see a breakdown of those parameters. So we're not disputing the assessor's NOI of $435,616, and we have also applied that. So the only difference here would be the cap rate. So with our 6% cap rate, we have an indicated value of $7,260,000, which works out to approximately $55,000 per unit. And then I have some interior photos similar to the assessor in my brief, starting on page 14. And then the remainder would just be the city valuation that we've referenced. And that would conclude my presentation on this property. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions, Mr. Dyachin?
No further questions.
Mr. Belenky?
No questions, thank you.
And Mr. McIntyre?
I have no questions, thank you.
I'm sorry, just one question. Did you happen to property?
I wasn't able to visit this property.
Thank you. And do either of you have a wish for summation at this time?
I'll do a brief summation.
Mr.
No, thank you.
So the properties that we've heard thus far are social housing properties, with many of them being seniors housing properties, and we stand firm on our position of making adjustments. I understand the assessor disagrees with that, but there are issues that have to be accounted for, and multiple issues. So we stand firm on that position with those adjustments. Thank you.
Right. Thank you. At this time, we're going to take a brief 7-minute recess.
7?
7. And I would like to call this meeting back to order, and we will proceed to 295 Midwinter Avenue, but we will actually swear in the applicant first.
Great. Mr. Applicant, please state your full name.
Ryan Oliveros.
Do you affirm that the evidence you are about to give at this hearing is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. You may be seated.
Good morning, Mr. Oliveros.
Good morning, Ms. Linklater.
And Mr. Dyachin, whenever you are ready to proceed with 295 Midwinter Avenue.
It's file number 221565, roll number 14091593100. Address is 295 Midwinter Avenue. Roll year 2023, assessed values at $2,162,000. It is 20T property. It is one building, 2 stories high, built in 1968. It has 27 suites and 21 outdoor parking stalls. On page 3, it shows the income value summary, and the number of units are 21 1-bedrooms, 3 2-bedrooms, 3 3-bedrooms for 27 units at an average monthly rent of $766.09. The effective gross income is $240,270. Expenses are $129,986 for an NOI of $110,284 and a cap rate of 5.1%. Brings the value to $2,162,000. Page 4 again is the rent comparables. Tried to find silver suite mixes built around the same year in the area. And again, you can see it falls at the low end of the average monthly rent per unit. Page 5 is again our cap rate, evidence supporting our model cap rates. Page 6 is the cap rate table. Page 8 to 10 is the income and expense mailers. Excuse me. Once removing the mortgages, the 2020 NOI is about $107,000, and we're at 110, so we're very, very close in that regard. Page 11 is just a description of the property and some of the amenities. Page 12 and on are some pictures of the exterior and interior photos. You can see that it's obviously a bit dated, but looks very well maintained. And that is my evidence. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Oliveris, questions?
I do. Thank you, Ms. Linklater. So, Mr. Deitchen, just flipping over to page 3 of your evidence here. So, as was questioned earlier, on this docket here, the inputs on your income approach here are all model driven. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yep.
All right. And you've included the 2020. Have you included the 2020 income expense mailer in your evidence?
Yeah.
Okay. And all right, so I'm seeing that on page 9 here. Did you have a chance to review the expenses of the subject?
I was just able to quickly look through it and calculate the NOI.
Okay. Are you aware that the expenses of the subject here, they've actually been averaging almost above the 65% range?
Without doing the calculation, I'm not too sure. Are they?
Does the model take into account the actual expenses incurred by any subject property?
We use the income and expense mailers from properties. Yeah.
With the expense ratio that's stated here, it's 54.1% in comparison, again, to the average here at 65%. Wouldn't you agree that there should be some adjustment made to that based on the actuals?
I'm not too sure about the 65% that you're talking about.
So you really just gave a glance over of the expenses that the subject property has incurred then?
Well, I did. I looked through it and everything looked good except for the mortgage payments. I removed that, so we brought the expenses to about 160,000. Removing that, taking that off the revenues brings us to 107,000.
Did you have a chance to review the income and expense mailers prior to 2020?
No, I did not.
Okay. If we flip over to page 12 of your evidence here, I appreciate you including the photos of the subject here. Would you say that the finishes here, it appears that they're almost in their original condition? Looking at the flooring.
Potentially. I would say maybe not the countertops, but I guess maybe the flooring and stuff.
Okay, fair enough. Ms. Linklater, I also have some follow-up questions regarding the assessor rebuttal. So I guess we're in a bit of an awkward stage because we had another agent, or Ms. Cates was asking questions. So would you like me to ask the questions maybe after the panel has asked their questions regarding the
Yes,
main brief?
we'll actually go through everybody's briefs and then you can proceed with your questions in regards to the rebuttal.
Okay, so after I'm questioned, then we will go on to questioning for the rebuttal. Okay, I just wanted to be clear on that point. Okay, those are all my questions regarding the main brief. Then I will also have rebuttal to submit after my questioning as well. So,
all right.
Yes.
Mr. Belenky, did you have any questions?
I have no questions. Thank you.
Mr. McIntyre?
I have no questions, thank you.
Just in regards to your photos, Diachin, I think you just made a statement to the applicant regarding the countertops, but did you look at the countertops in the bathroom on page 13? Would you not say those are original? Would you not say the cabinetry is original?
Yeah, I said just the countertops, maybe not from the 60s. Like you can see the bathtub and stuff, that's definitely not 60s. So I was just kind of making a statement that it's not all original.
No, I would say the flooring has probably been replaced in the bathroom.
Yeah, it's hard to.
I'm going to suggest it has not been replaced in the apartment itself, but
No, for sure.
so just wondering, because this building has a effective age of 1968, built in 1968, do you not have considered an adjustment on the cap rate on this property? Because it's
What regards?
5.1.
Yeah. I think that's well supported in our cap rate evidence.
Okay. I thank you. Mr. Oliveris, I'd like to see you review.
Thank you, Ms. Linklater. Okay, so the subject property is at 295 Midwinter Avenue. I'm just gonna skip over to the property description here. So it's a 2.5-story walk-up apartment. It's located on the northwest corner of the intersection of Midwinter Avenue and Levi Street, in Winnipeg's East Kildonan area. The site size, according to the city's records, is 19,837 square feet, and is zoned RMFL, multifamily large. The improvement was built in 1968. And it's presently being used as a multifamily residential building. There are a total of 27 units, with 21 one-bedroom units and 3 two-bedroom units. 3 two-bedroom units and 3 three-bedroom units. The total gross floor area is 23,955 square feet. And we have that there are, that must have not been, I forgot to update that there are actually 24 outdoor parking stalls, and that is also shown on my valuation page. I provided a map of the subject property's location on page 5 of my evidence here. And I am going to move forward to our income valuation here. So in reviewing this property again after submission, I'm looking at the amount of one-bedroom units, considering the fact that this is a smaller apartment building with a smaller number of units here. I'm actually adjusting my cap rate in this case. I'm going to be changing that from 5.75% to 5.5%. I think the suite mix here is actually sufficient after a further review of it. Ms. Cates has already gone through how we go through our stabilizations, removing any outliers if we do see any with regards to the expenses here. We can also see that we are actually higher than the city here on our EGI. So with that, we've arrived at a net operating income of $96,060. And I should also mention the expenses here. As we look at them, we can see that the expenses between 2017 to 2020 have ranged from 60.5% to 80.5%. We're actually on the lower end of what the expenses have been, at 65% in our valuation. So taking the expenses, deducting them from the EGI, we arrive at a net operating income of $96,060. Applying that cap rate of adjusted cap rate of 5.5%, our revised value is now actually $1,747,000. And that is the value we are asking the board to reduce the 20% assessed value to today. I've included also our repair and maintenance stabilization on page 10 for your reference as well. And that concludes my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Diachin, questions?
No further questions, just my comments and questions regarding the negative factors and cap rate premiums carried forward from before.
Thank you. Mr. Belenky?
I have no questions.
Mr. McIntyre?
I have no questions, thank you.
Did you have a chance to inspect this property?
I did not have the chance to inspect the property, no.
And you had questions on Mr. Diachin's rebuttal, correct?
I do. Thank you, Ms. Linklater. Okay. So, Mr. Diachin, I'm looking at your rebuttal document labeled here, Rebuttal Altus Cap Rate Properties, where you have some highlighted sections here of, I guess, the negative factors of of what the city states are the negative factors of our cap rate comparables. Are you on that document?
I am on that document, yep.
Okay. So my question here is, you state that properties here like 677 Maryland, what is that? That is 512 Balmoral, 277 Langside. They're in poor locations. It looks like the parking ratios on them are insufficient as well. That is what you are suggesting in your rebuttal, correct?
Yep.
Okay, these cap rates here, it's on page 7 of my cap rate evidence. These are properties in good locations. You'd agree with me on that, correct?
Sorry, say that again.
On our cap rate evidence here on page 7, we state here that these cap rate ranges that we're stating here, therefore, they would be indicative of properties in good locations, correct? You've reviewed that, and that is in fact what we state?
Yeah, that's what you stated, yeah.
Okay, and in your presentation regarding your rebuttal here, you state that we would be double counting if we were to adjust for factors such as location, parking ratio, etc.
Yep.
Okay. If we go to page 6 of our cap rate evidence, if we look to those properties that I was mentioning here, 677 Maryland, which has been fully renovated in 2013, 512 Balmoral with a 6.75% cap rate, 277 Langside with a 6.12% cap rate. Looking at the ages of them and comparing them to what we state the cap rate should be for properties in that respective age range, we can see here that adjustments would be justified, do we not?
I'm sorry, you'd have to repeat that. I couldn't follow that.
No, that's okay. So I'll break this down here. So if we look at 677 Maryland, 512 Balmoral, 277 Langside, you said here that they're in poor locations, correct?
Yeah.
The cap rate ranges for those properties here, just to make this point clear, 5.66%, 6.75%, and 6.12%. That's correct?
Yeah, that's what it looks like.
Evidence? Okay. And you stated in your presentation that we would be double counting for the negative factors, given what we've stated in our cap rate study, correct?
Correct.
But we can clearly see here, if we look at the respective cap rate ranges for the properties that I had mentioned there, we can see that adjustments would be justified, do we not? We say here, let's take this as an example. 512 Balmoral, built 1972. It is a 3.5-story property. We state that the cap rate should be 5.5%. The cap rate for 512 Balmoral, though, given that it's in a poor location, is 6.75%. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay, so in fact, we are justified in applying adjustments should we find them necessary.
Well, you're using all these cap rates for your range. You're not just comparing it 1-to-1 and saying, "Oh, it's in a poor location, so I'm going to apply whatever quarter point or half point." Because on the property we were just looking at, you were talking about parking and suite mix. Like it, I don't know. I'm not really sure where this is going, I guess.
Okay, I guess the point I'm just trying to make here is that considering the factors and thinking, and again, the most basic example that I can give is just the location narrative there, is that we are justified in making adjustments to the cap rate.
No, I wouldn't agree to that.
Right. Those are all my questions then. Thank you.
Stated you had rebuttal.
Yes, so that would be the, our document, stated Altus rebuttal for apartment cap rates, 2023.
Sorry, rebuttal to the assessor apartment cap rate. Is that what you said, Mr. Oliveris?
That is correct, yes.
Is that the one I got this morning?
Yes.
Okay.
All right, if you would like to proceed.
Thank you, Ms. Linklater. And yes, so I understand that we've all likely seen this rebuttal a number of times. I haven't been as heavily involved in apartments this year as Ms. Cates or as Ms. Cates was. So I do want to just go through this briefly. So if we go to page 1 of our cap rate rebuttal here. So with regards to 2390 McPhillips here, we can see that the property was purchased, or in our analysis, we saw that the property was purchased with below market rents. And those rents indicate, and sorry, the purchaser adds, it looked like after the purchase, the rents actually increased between $245 to $395 over the pro forma rents. So we did redo the cap rate for that property using CMHC rents and CMHC vacancy rents, vacancy for apartments built after 2005. And using those CMHC rents, we could see that we are higher than the pro forma by $104 for 1-bedroom units and by $184 for the 2-bedroom units. And it looks like we've arrived at a cap rate here of 5.59%. So in our mind, again, we believe that when investors take a look at purchasing these types of properties, that they are knowledgeable in this case. So any investor would see that the rents for the apartment or for 2390 McPhillips were below market, and they would adjust their income analysis for those reasons. If we go to page 3 of our rebuttal evidence here, 700 St. Mary's, we did learn that this property was purchased with the intention to renovate. And for 32 Arden here, it was also purchased with the intention to renovate. And we've also included the municipal board order here that we've alluded to, I believe, a number of times in all our cases here, that it states that it is improper to use cap rates when the purchaser intends to renovate. The balance of the brief is just the supporting documents for your review, and that would conclude my presentation on our rebuttal.
Thank you. Gaijin, did you have any questions regarding the rebuttal?
I guess, yeah, just a couple quick ones. So I'm looking on page 9. There's a listing on here. So was that used to help support that the rents are low for the 2390 McPhillips?
I believe it was, yes. So that's how we figured that the rents that the property was incurring are below market.
Okay. And this article is post-reference, correct?
Yes, it looks like you're correct on that point.
And then as for 700 St. Mary's, looking on page 41, I know you quickly referenced this municipal board order. On page 41, in the highlighted area, it says a renovation must be of significant financial investment on the part of the property owner, one that will cause future rents to substantially increase and should usually involve modification to a building envelope or realignment of structural walls. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And if we scroll back up to page 14 regarding 700 St. Mary's, it says he has done some renovations to the common areas of the building, such as repainting the halls and replacing the carpeting. He has planned to do more, but COVID funds has prevented him from doing anything further. Is that correct?
That is correct. Yes.
Consider repainting halls and replacing carpet significant renovations?
They would
At all?
have I'd agree with you. Yeah, they would not be considered significant renovations. However, it also, like you also state here, that there seems to just be a shortage of funds that would prevent the owner from proceeding any further. So just because he can't get the renovations done now, I guess doesn't mean that he wouldn't be able to get them done in the future.
Yeah, but we don't know that for sure, or we don't know when the renovations will happen.
We don't know, no, but then again, the board's order states with the intention to renovate, so.
Well, then everyone could just say they have an intention to renovate, but what is done right now is the painting out and replacing carpets, am I correct?
That's correct, yes.
Okay, no further questions.
Thank you. Do you have any questions? Mr. Belinkie, do you have any questions?
Sorry, no questions, thank you.
Mr. McIntyre?
I have no questions, thank you.
Thank you. I am just going to state that some of your information was post-reference.
Yes.
And we also don't give weight to municipal board decisions.
Okay, yes, no, I completely respect that. Yeah, I'll look into the post-reference information here.
Did either of you have a wish for a summation on 295 Midwinter?
No, thank you.
I would just like to surmise one point here. I do ask the board to recognize here that the expense ratio of the subject here for the past, or from 2017 to 2020 has been quite high. And it doesn't appear that the city's model has reflected the high expense ratios, and I ask that that be taken into consideration. Thank you.
Right. We will move on to 320 Poplar Avenue. And Mr. Dychin, whenever you would like to proceed.
Sorry, I'm just pulling it up. Okay, it's file number 222431, roll number 14083210100, and the address is 320 Poplar Avenue. Roll year 2023, assessed value is $3,731,000. It is one building, 2 stories high, built in 1969. It has 42 suites and 32 outdoor parking stalls. I'll just quickly go through this because looking ahead, it looks like we're very close on NOI. It's mostly a cap issue. Our NOI is 192,132 and a cap rate of 5.15% brings the value to $3,731,000. Again, page 4 is the rent comparables. And you can see again, the average monthly rent for the subject is near the end of the range. Got the cap rate evidence on page 6 and 7. We have the mailers on page 8 to 12. And page 13 forward are some there's some information regarding the property. You'd see that it says new carpets and paint on-site laundry and building security system. And then there's a few pictures of the property, the interior, and that is my evidence.
Thank you. Question?
I do. Thank you, Ms. Linklater. Mr. Deitchen, just one additional question here. And I asked that this be applied to all the properties on the docket actually, or on the remaining properties on this docket. Have you visited at least the location of the subject property, the neighborhood at all?
No, I don't believe I have ever been by this building.
Okay. So are you aware that this neighborhood here, I believe it is Chalmers actually, this may seem to some, maybe many, to be a below average neighborhood?
Maybe. I'm not too sure. Like, that could be subjective, I guess.
Okay. Okay, those are all my questions. Thank you.
Mr. Belenky, did you have any questions?
No questions, thank you.
Mr. McIntyre?
I have no questions, thank you.
Mr. Deitchen, you did not inspect the property, correct?
I did not know.
The photos you're providing, are they recent?
I'm not too sure when they were taken. Like, I pulled them recently, but I'm not too sure when they were. Like, looking at the description at the top, it looks like probably from around 2020 because it says move-in date December 31st, 2020. So probably sometime in 2020. My assumption.
Right. So after looking at the pictures and given the condition, you did consider adjusting the cap rate?
No, I did not.
All right, I thank you. Mr. O'Hara, you would like to give your presentation?
Thank you, Ms. Linklater. Okay, so the subject property is at 320 Poplar Avenue. Roll number is 14-0832-10100. The assessor, I believe, has described the property accurately here. So I'm going to skip over the property description on page 4 of my evidence, but it's there for your review. I've included maps as well on pages 4 to 5 of my evidence. To go on to page 9 to my valuation here. As Mrs. Deitchen had mentioned, we are very close on the net operating income here. We come in at $191,805. The model has come to a net operating income of $192,132. So the only difference, or the only issue here, is the capitalization rate. So based on the age of the subject property, this is pretty much your standard apartment here. I have no issues with the suite mixes, parking ratios. The only thing that would be a small concern to me here would be the location. I have been at this location. I have visited the subject neighborhood a number of times, and I can say that based on what I have seen, that this neighborhood would be considered below average, and I'm comparing that maybe to say the Maples area, where I grew up, or South Golden area where I worked before. So in that, I do believe that we are being fair with the cap rate here of 5.5%. And we're asking the board to reduce the assessed value here as indicated on our evidence to $3,487,000. And that concludes my presentation.
Thank you. Questions, Mr. Deitchen?
No questions.
Mr. Belenky?
No questions, thank you.
And Mr. McIntyre?
I have no questions, thank you.
I also have no questions. Does either party have a wish for summation?
Thank you.
We will move on to 111 Statacona. The floor is yours, Mr. Deitchen.
It's file number 22957. Roll number is 0902555200. The address is 111 Stadacona. Assessed value is at $7,290,000. I have a recommendation using the applicant's NOI at $364,909 and our cap rate of 5.35%, bringing the value to $6,821,000.
I'm sorry, Mr. Deitchen, that was using the applicant's NOI?
Yeah.
And a cap rate, your cap rate of 5.35?
That's correct.
Mr. Oliveros?
We do accept the recommendation. However, just to be clear on that point, we are only accepting the value, not necessarily the methodology as to which the value was arrived at.
Right. Mr. Belinkie, did you have any questions in regarding this recommendation?
No questions, thank you.
And Mr. McIntyre?
I have no questions, thank you.
So, Mr. Oliveros, I'm going to suggest that you are not necessarily accepting of the city's cap rate, correct?
That's correct, yes.
Thank you. We'll then move on to 191 Rock Street. Whenever you would like to proceed, Mr. Deitchen.
File number 22956, roll number 14083225100. The address is 191 Rock Street or Roche Street. Roll year 2023. Assessed value is at $3,769,000. It is 20T. The build is one building, 2 stories high, built in 1971 with 36 suites and 28 outdoor parking stalls. As you can see, there is a sale on this property for $3.6 million, as I'll speak about a little bit later. Page 3 shows 1 bachelor, 25 1-bedrooms, and 10 2-bedrooms for 36 total suites at an average monthly rent of $881.24. Our NOI is at $193,337 at a cap rate of 5.05%, brings the value to $3,769,000. Page 4 is our rent comparables. Again, you can see it falls near or below the range of average monthly rent per unit. Page 5 and 6 is the cap rate information. Page 8 is just a permit for interior alterations to the 35 suites, including flooring, painting, kitchen cabinets, and electrical work for about $240,000. Page 9 to 11 is the income and expense mailers. The 2020 NOI is about $208,000, and we're at $190,000, so it looks like we're a bit low on that. Page 12 and forward is the sales questionnaire. You can see it sold in February 2018 for $3,610,000. You can see that it was an arm's length sale, yes. And there was appraisal done on it for $3.725 million. You can see it was also purchased at a cap rate of 5%. So it looks like we're at 5.05. So it looks like we're very close on that regard. And then page 16 is just a quick description of the property. stating some newer kitchen cabinets, appliances, windows, blinds, flooring, bathroom, electrical fixtures, and rents around $800. That one, and then a couple exterior pictures. Unfortunately, no interior photos, and that is my evidence. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Barris, questions?
I do. Thank you, Ms. Linklater. So the inputs are model driven on page 3 of your evidence?
Correct.
Okay, and did you have a chance to review the actual income and expenses of the subject property?
Yeah, I was able to look at them and calculate the NOI. As I stated, it was about 208,000 for 2020.
208,000.
Yep.
Okay. And did you provide that work up here? Sorry, I might have missed that.
No, it was just a quick calculation. Like it's not too difficult to look at these and just take out amortization and mortgage interest.
Okay. But you haven't provided the workup, so we can't really confirm how you arrived at your stabilization of that.
Well, we can. You just take out the mortgage interest and amortization and subtract that from the revenue.
Yes, sorry. Yeah.
No.
Okay. The permit that you've included in your evidence here, that was from 2010.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's fair to say that the renovations here that it states were already completed, likely much prior to 2020 here.
Oh yeah. Yep, for sure.
So the actual rents and expenses would be reflective of the current condition of the subject?
Yeah.
Okay. Those are all my questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Belenky, questions?
Yes, I have one question. I'd like to ask of the assessor if he could repeat his sale that he was making the comparisons to, or the conditions of it and the.
Yeah, it's on page 14. The sale date was February 14th, 2018 for $3.61 million. You can see that it says, was this an arm's length open market transaction? Yes. And then there's the appraisal on line 5 for $3.725 million. And on page 15, on line 32, it shows the capitalization rate that it was purchased based on and 5%.
Okay, very good. I just was scrolling too quickly at the time.
Oh, that's fine.
So I appreciate your repeating this. Thank you.
Yeah, no worries.
Mr. McIntyre?
I have no questions, thank you.
I just have one question, Mr. Diachin. In regards to this permit in 2010, was there a value?
The declared construction value looks like $240,000.
Great. Thank you. And that's the only permit that you saw issued on this property?
Yeah.
All right. So that did not make any difference then to the effective age, because it's got a build and effective age of 1971, correct?
Yeah, like I looked, there wasn't any sort of inspection done, so we probably need to inspect it and possibly adjust the effective age, possibly, I should say. say.
That's all my questions. Mr. Oliveris, if you'd like to.
Thank you, Ms. Linklater. Okay, so the subject property is 191 Road Street. The roll number is 14-083-225-100. Again, the assessors described, or Mr. Dyson has described the property accurately here, so I'm going to skip over my description on page 4 of my evidence. All my briefs follow the same pattern here, so I provided maps on page 4 and 5. And I will just move on to my income workup here. So as I had stated earlier on this doc here, I have changed my opinion just regarding sweet mix here. Given that, I've adjusted my cap rate on my stabilization here from 5.75% to 5.5%. So applying that to my net operating income of $185,213, my revised value is now $3,368,000. And I mean, I do recognize the sale of the subject here. I understand that there's been an appraisal done on it, but as we know, if you were to give a valuation assignment to two different appraisers, they may come up with two different values here. Also, one sale does not make the market. There are no additional sales here that would support the price that that our client paid for this property. So given that, I do feel that our value of $3,368,000 is still justified, and that I do request that the board reduce the assessed value to that amount. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions, Mr. Dyson?
Just one quick one. Just looking at the vacancy, it looks pretty consistent around 1.3%. How come we didn't use the actual vacancy?
Yeah, so typically with these vacancies, I mean, we're looking at them in perpetuity here. There's going to be some low years. There's going to be some high years. So for that reason, we just we did apply the model vacancy rate here of 3.2%.
But wouldn't you agree that 1.1, 1.8, that's pretty consistent over those 3 years, is it not?
That's consistent, yes.
Okay, no further questions.
Thank you. Mr. Belenky, any questions?
I have no questions, thank you.
Thank you. And Mr. McIntyre?
And I have no questions. Thank you.
You did not have a chance to inspect this property?
I did not have the chance, no.
I just noticed and there's no photos included.
There are no photos, just of the exterior on page 2.
Right, thank you. Does either party have a wish for a summation?
No summation.
No.
We'll then proceed to the last property at 1050 McGregor. Mr. Dyson, whenever you'd like to proceed on this one.
Okay. The file number is 221562. Roll number 1103230960. The address is 1050 McGregor Street. Earlier 2023. Assessed value is $5,655,000. Is a 20T property. One building, 3 stories high, built in 1970, with 48 suites and 48 outdoor parking stalls. Page 3 shows 39 one-bedrooms, 9 two-bedrooms for a total of 48 suites at an average monthly rent per unit at $992 and 6 cents. The NOI we have is $294,078 at a cap rate of 5.2%, brings the value to $5.655 million. Again, page 4 is the rent comparables. You see, once again, falls at the low end of the range of average monthly rent per unit. Page 5 and 6 is the cap rate information. Page 8 and on is the income and expense statements. And once removing the mortgage payments, we could calculate the actual NOI to be $300,000. And the model is coming in around 294. So looks like we're just below that in that regard. And then continue on to page 12 is just some information about the property and the building amenities. Page 13 is some exterior photos. Page 14 is or some interior photos. As you can see, that the flooring was definitely done, and the kitchen not the kitchen cabinets. Well, the kitchen cabinets probably aren't original, but the bathroom cabinets definitely aren't original, and the tub and toilet and the flooring in the bathroom as well looks like it was done. So, as there's no effective age, this property probably needs to be inspected and potentially effective age applied. And that is my evidence. Thank you.
Mr. Oliveris?
Thank you, Ms. Linklater. I do have a few just one question here. So the parking ratio here, it's about 59%, correct?
Parking ratio? No, I think it's 1-to-1 according to our information.
I have 28.
On ours, it's 48 and 48. So
if we look at the income and expense mailer here, and I believe you had provided that, it says here that there are 28 outdoor parking stalls.
Oh yeah, there. Yeah, that could be. I would have to check other years to see if that is correct or if that was a typo, because we have 48 in our system. So that's what I was going with.
Okay. I guess just in looking at the parking ratio, comparing it to your rebuttal here, 0.58 based on your rebuttal here, or 59%, if that is in fact true. I know it looks like there may have to be some review done there, but I mean, even seeing the photo, 28 seems like a reasonable estimate of the amount of parking stalls. 58% would be considered low in your opinion. Is that correct?
58. Sorry, say it again.
58% parking ratio would be considered low, correct? Ratio?
I guess slightly.
Okay. I guess I'm just a little confused about that opinion, because on your rebuttal you had stated here 63% would be considered a poor parking to suite count ratio.
Well, I'm just using that. That's what you guys consider. Anything below 1 is a poor parking to suite count ratio.
Okay. No further questions.
Mr. Belenky, questions?
I have no questions, thank you.
And Mr. McIntyre?
My question on the discrepancy in the outdoor parking stalls has been asked and answered. Thank you.
Thank you. No questions? Mr. Oliveris, if you would like to proceed with your brief.
Yes, thank you, Ms. Linklater. Okay, so the subject property is at 1050 McGregor Street. The roll number is 11-0323-09600. So again, the assessor has described the property accurately, save and except for the number of parking stalls here. We do have 28, whereas their evidence would suggest that there are 48 outdoor parking stalls. But I think we can see here clearly from the photos, it looks like there may be just about 28 or like maybe up to 30 parking stalls maybe, but I don't think there would be 48 parking stalls just looking at the aerial view there. So just to make that point. If we go on to my valuation summary here on page 9
of my evidence. So again, I'm gonna make some adjustments to the cap rate here. Like I said, when we have predominantly 1-bedroom units in comparison to like 2 or 3-bedroom units, we might be okay. In this case here, that seems to be quite a high number of 1-bedroom units, and that coupled with the low parking to suite count ratio here, I do believe that there should be some adjustment for that. The city's model and our stabilized NOI is very similar here. We come in at $294,899, whereas the city's model comes in at $294,078. I'll adjust that cap rate down here again, looking at the parking ratio and the suite mix in combination here. I'll apply only a 25 basis point increase to our base cap rate, which is 5.5%, and apply a 5.75% cap rate. And that would bring me to a revised value of $5,129,000. And that concludes my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Dychin, questions?
Just a quick question. I guess looking at the factors that you use, is there
Yes.
a breakdown on how you apply? Like, do you just apply like 0.25 say for parking, or is it like, is there some sort of like formula? I guess is what I'm trying to say on how this.
No,
is.
it's no. I thank you for that question. There is really no formula as to how we would apply our adjustments to the cap rate here. It's really based on subjective opinion, actually. So I wouldn't like apply like from my prior experience, I wouldn't be applying like a 25 basis point increase just for parking and 25 basis point increase just for the suite mix there. We're looking at all sort of the risks in combination with each other and would apply a subjective adjustment from there.
Okay. Do you ever apply like a negative to the, or reduce the cap rate, I guess I should say? Because this one has masonry construction, has amenities. It's in a decent area. Do you ever take off quarter points or anything for that?
I mean, McGregor, on McGregor Street, let's see. So Leela and McGregor, yeah, I grew up in that area there. Well, Maples, but we all kind of, it's very close. I mean, I would consider that already a good location, so I wouldn't make an adjustment for location for that point and for location. And I mean, if we did need to apply any negative adjustments, we probably wouldn't have appealed the property itself. So you were saying with amenities and such as well?
Sorry?
Regarding amenities, you were stating that you're asking if we would apply a decrease for amenities as well?
Well, yeah, like, because I know you guys have taken off or you've added quarter points for, say, wood construction. This one's masonry construction, arguably better. And then amenities, not having amenities. This one has gyms, lockers, whatever, elevators. So it has amenities, decent, like good amenities, I would say.
Yeah, no, I mean, I would agree with you that it does have good amenities here. But that just seems to be the standard with most apartments now. So I wouldn't apply a decrease for that reason. And maybe if we look at like your premium apartments, let's say those out in the Sage Creek area, that yeah, I mean, those would have lower cap rates attached to them if they were ever sold, because they're following the standards of how apartments are built at this time. So
Okay, no further questions.
Thank you. Mr. Belenky, questions?
No questions, thank you.
Thank you. And Mr. McIntyre?
I have no questions, thank you.
Just one quick question. You didn't have a chance to inspect this property?
I did not know.
All right, thank you. Does either party have a wish for a summation on this property?
No, thank you.
No summation, thank you.
All right, we have heard all the items on the docket this morning, and this hearing is adjourned. And I would
Okay.
thank you, Mr. Dyachin and Mr. Oliveris, for your briefs and your time and patience. Much appreciated.
Thanks.
Thank you very much, guys.
Take care, guys.